Excellent. So I'll introduce myself, but first of all, many thanks for joining us on Friday afternoon. We weren't too sure what the uptake rate would be like on a Friday, but we can see people joining by the minute. So first of all, thank you for that. We hope you find the session useful. Any questions, please pop them into chat and we can answer those towards the end of the session. So I'm Neil Curry. I look after the sales for TargetRecruit in the UK and EMEA, and I'm with my colleague Chris.
Yeah, hi everyone. Chris Jordan, Chief Technology Officer for TargetRecruit. We're really thrilled to be participating in today's call.
So a little bit about us, for those of you who aren't aware of TargetRecruit, you haven't come across us, where, as Moya said, we're a CRM provider built on Salesforce. We've been in the industry, in the game for 10 plus years. We've got 250 customers, grown by the week, and we've got a global footprint as well with our colleagues with 90 plus and grown as well. Our core focus is to provide CRM to the staffing and recruitment industry, really with a view to making you successful in running your organization. We're an independent company. We're not part of a large software house. We don't have multiple products in the portfolio. And what that really allows us to do is have a real focus on making you successful with using TargetRecruit. And that's really largely reflected in the 98% retention rate that we love to shout about. We just don't see customers leaving us. When they do, it's usually when they've been acquired or merged into another agency. So it's something that we're particularly proud of. And as has already been mentioned, we are built on and dedicated to Salesforce. I'm sure a lot of you, if not all of you, are familiar with Salesforce, but and we'll go into a bit more detail as to what that offers to our clients and how TargetRecruit provides so much more by being a product built within the Salesforce platform. But that's one of the main reasons why clients choose to partner with us. In regards to the running order, what we're going to be covering is, what is a product, just to set the scene, what's a platform, what you get with each one, the pros and the cons, what you also give up, so not just the advantages, but considerations for any pitfalls that you may have, what to look for if you are considering a product or platform, and then what the path forward is as well. So, what is a product? We're not going to sit here and teach you how to suck eggs. We appreciate there's a lot of clever people in the audience this afternoon, and of course to a certain degree what a software product is. However, we are going to dive in a little bit further and really compare the variable of the product compared to the platform to help better inform you about buying decisions that are going to be right for your business. So for the purpose of today's discussion, the product is software, on-premise or SaaS. Until recently, most products would be standalone with one job to do, and that was to fix a problem that you have now or you may have in the future. Whether or not that product had integration capabilities or even the ability to live within a platform was really down to who you chose and also how that product was built. Over to you, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. So I'm going to talk a bit more now about what is a platform. So I think that the word platform, has really become quite commonplace, but that there isn't really one definition for the word. I think if you put 10 people in a room and ask them to define what is a platform, you're probably going to get 10 different answers. But I think this kind of statement, in my mind at least, sums it up pretty well. In terms of having a development and deployment environment that offers you a portfolio of different resources and services, potentially different technologies as well, in order for you to help build your business solutions. It really is, from a more technological aspect, to me, a framework that really encapsulates the different the different phases in the application development life cycle. When we talk about things like having a building phase, being able test so anything that we're building on that framework, deployment of solutions, managing those solutions, and then of course upgrading them and updating them as you go along. I also like to think in terms of analogies, comparing a platform to a bit like a pizza restaurant. If you go to a pizza restaurant, you have multiple clients, right? Well, you know, a platform typically runs on a shared tenancy, so there's more than one client or customer that is sharing that same environment, that same infrastructure, a bit like when you go to a restaurant. You as a customer don't have to worry about the underlying infrastructure or the cost. You don't have to worry about purchasing the hardware to cook those pizzas, the pizza ovens, the refrigerators, the tables, the chairs, all that kind of stuff. That's all included in the cost of you know of you using that service. And then of course, the more you use, whether you're ordering a small salad or if you're ordering a large pizza or a whole number of pizzas, right? It's more of a pay for consumption model. So the more you use, the more you pay, or the less you use, obviously, the less you pay. And finally, you know, a great advantage of that kind of platform model, again, just tying it back to that pizza analogy, is that you have a core set of ingredients or services, and then you can add to that. You can build that pizza however you want, whether it's just, hey, this is just a cheese and tomato pizza, it's something pretty basic, so I'm quick to deliver, or no, I'm going to put 54 toppings on this thing, and we're going to build something epic. So just kind of setting the scene in terms of, you know, what a platform is and what that means to us. Neil, let's talk a little bit about why a company might buy a product.
Sure. Thanks, Chris. So, as I mentioned a couple of slides back, products tend to fix a problem that you have now or in the future, and that's really how companies typically buy them, with that fix in mind. If done properly, they're often quick wins to deliver immediate business needs, much quicker than implementing a platform, okay? If we look at who buys standalone products versus investing in platforms, what we often find here at TargetRecruit is, more often than not, it's the smaller companies, okay? They don't always have a need for a company-wide solution. They therefore end up having a number of disparate products across the business with multiple relationships with different suppliers. They may have limited budget. They don't always have the in-house expertise to manage and maintain a platform. And most crucially, they don't always realize the true value that a platform can deliver for their business. So almost the buying process is done in isolation to think, we've got this problem, or we will have this problem. Let's look at a fix in isolation to address that concern. That's not to say that bigger companies don't acquire standalone products, because they absolutely do. However, from experience, they do review platform options because they've been through or are feeling the pain of having many systems across the organization. So I guess in short, it's the companies who perhaps haven't gone through the pain of managing multiple products who typically buy a standalone product and not necessarily invest or see the true value in a platform. And then if we look at the implication of standalone product, there's four main things which stand out. And again, from conversations that we have with companies in this space, they're the main themes of what they're struggling with when they've made an investment in a solution, sometimes 15 years ago, sometimes just last year. Okay, we see a whole range of different experiences. So with any gain that buying a standalone product gives you, there's always a downside. We've seen this from, again, the different discussions that we've had in the marketplace. So let's look at the first of those downsides, and that's wasted time. So very rarely will a business make a decision on a single set of data. They'll often combine multiple sources, then slice and dice the information to give a complete picture of what that company needs. If you have separate products across your business, then pulling all those metrics together from different products in different formats, from different stakeholders, it just wastes time. And this leads to productivity issues, frustrations, and real problems in making informed business decisions quickly. Okay. Secondly, we have integration limitations. So I don't want to steal Chris's thunder, but the beauty of a platform is how knitted together all the products are that live within that environment. When those products are standalone, this is rarely the case because it's all but impossible to build a product that can interface seamlessly with any other product out there. That's why you invest in a platform, because people build products on the platform. So practically businesses end up exporting and importing data, usually in a hurry. It's usually last minute, providing information to the board, sending that across, and it just becomes a bit of a headache. And this leads to the third point, data integrity. In the main, products are designed to be secure and look after your data. It's one of the main things that we get asked for towards the end when somebody's looking to partner with us. They start to understand about our infrastructure and how we support, how we hold their data and what it's going to look like for them going forward. But as soon as you export that data, it's compromised. So let's imagine it is the case that you're combining from different sources. Not only is it likely to be unsecure, but because you've pulled it from the main source of where it was entered, it's now no longer live and therefore not necessarily accurate. And the fourth downside to consider is the multiple relationships that you have with different suppliers. As and when your tech stack grows, this can become a real practical headache. You'll have different account managers, you'll have different payment terms, you'll have different renewal dates, different support methods. I mean, I could go on, but you get the picture. You've just got to take into consideration the implications of managing relationships with multiple providers. And if they're not all knitted together in a platform, they're the four main ones which stand out from businesses who say, look, this is what we're using, it's standalone. These are the concerns that we've got. So there's some of the implications from standalone products that you should consider. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Neil. So let's dig in a bit deeper into platforms, and then let's touch a little bit more on what I was saying earlier on about underlying infrastructure. Certainly, in comparison to say an on-premise environment, with a cloud-based platform, you're not going to have to worry about that infrastructure, right? In terms of purchasing hardware for servers, networking, security, appliances, and then not just that technical infrastructure, but also obviously the facilities to accommodate that equipment and everything that goes along with that. So the electricity, the cooling, the heating, the physical security for that building, the insurance, the resources to run it, etc. That's kind of all taken out of your hands, so you don't have to worry about that. Also, with a platform, it allows companies to really scale faster. And what I mean by that is almost without having to worry about how you're going to scale from a technology standpoint. So platforms really give you that ability that as you are, say, adding users, as your company grows, as you're adding users, maybe as you're adding different countries and geographies, opening offices in different regions, that concern in terms of how you're going to support that user base, that growing user base, that's not something you're going to have to worry about with a platform, because that's really all managed and taken care of for you. And then in terms of the software infrastructure, with platforms such as Salesforce, for instance, that software infrastructure is pushed out to you automatically on an ongoing basis. So Salesforce has 3 major releases a year as that company continues to innovate on the platform. And then I think that really has a great benefit in terms of reducing your potential for technical debt. I think we've all seen it at companies whereby companies are running systems that have been there since the dawn of age and of the age of dawn, and just being able to maintain those systems, they become problematic, they become unsupported by other vendors. With a platform, you don't really have to worry about that quite so much. Development time and accelerating development time. A lot of these platforms come with sample code and pre-built applications. So that really helps you jumpstart your development. Also, typically they come with very well documented and open APIs, which then integrating into your own environment, your own technology landscape that you have out there becomes a lot easier when those APIs are obviously very accessible, and the platforms themselves have very often integration tools that can be built into them to make that a lot faster for you. And in that case, it lets you kind of map your existing business processes much more effectively to that platform, and you kind of get that boost in productivity because you can turn that around far quicker. And also, just talking about development time, I don't think what can be understated too much is often the partner ecosystems that come with these platforms. So in the case of TargetRecruit, sitting on the Salesforce platform, lots of other vendors in that space, whether we're looking at third-party solutions for, say, background verification, contract management, video interviewing, or maybe it's connecting to other systems, such as your HCM system, your financial system, getting that up and running with those partners already in some kind of an app store, if you like, really accelerates that transition. Development capabilities and kind of not necessarily having to add additional staff. What I'm talking about here is, with a system running on a platform such as TargetRecruit, for instance, it's got a huge amount of capability, obviously, straight out of the box. And much of that is, in terms of when we talk about implementing, is a matter of configuration, because it's been built for configuration. So whether you necessarily have to add specific expertise to your team just to accommodate this new product, this new technology, not necessarily. If you already have a development team, then great. And if you want to then develop and customize that solution, really kind of get into the technical weeds and add your own specific code in them, and of course that's very much possible. And I think, like with any of these platforms, whether it be Microsoft, whether it be Salesforce or Amazon with AWS, there's a huge community of technical talent that's available to you. So, if you look at the big conferences that say Salesforce have every year, you look at the over 100,000 people are turning up for these conferences every year. Huge amount of expertise, not just in country, but also globally, which gives you a lot of flexibility as a client, as a customer on that platform. Multiple platforms, developing for multiple platforms. I think that's a really huge advantage in terms of, again, I'm going to relate this to Salesforce. If you look at some of the other platforms that are within the Salesforce ecosystem, for want of a better expression, things like Slack, for instance, which is a huge and very extensive collaboration tool. the ability to be able to blend Salesforce and Slack and really improve productivity by leveraging both of those systems, I think is a really huge positive and advantage. If you can imagine, for instance, if you have, let's say, a lead come into your Salesforce CRM, and then automatically, as soon as that lead comes in, we all know that, you know, staffing and recruitment very often is very much time sensitive. To be able to take that new lead that's coming into Salesforce and then automatically be able to send a message to a salesperson in Slack to be able to follow up on that sales lead immediately without the need for that salesperson having to come out of Slack, go into Salesforce, and then that person being able to call that lead directly from within Slack using, you know, the in-call capabilities within the product, following up on that lead, and then that activity being captured by Slack and automatically recorded as a call activity within the Salesforce CRM. And you know, we all know how difficult it is to get anybody to sometimes manually update CRM systems for things like calls and interviews and visits, stuff like that. When you have a system or two systems working together like that to automatically capture that type of activity, I think that's a really big win. Also, if we look at, say, other systems, such as MuleSoft. So again, MuleSoft is another platform in the Salesforce ecosystem, and that's MuleSoft is the worldwide leader in as an integration as a service platform. Again, we TargetRecruit, we own licensing for MuleSoft, and the great thing that we can offer our customers is, you know, you don't have to make an investment in that tool, which is quite a can be quite a significant investment in terms of licensing. We can build integrations for you, and we'll build those integrations. We can manage those integrations, but of course, it works so well in synergy with Salesforce. So if you want to create, you know, a connection to, you know, your financial system or your HCM system, that is very easy to do on a very much on a bulletproof system.
Yeah, and I think just adding into that, Chris, it's important to mention that if anybody on the call today is using a platform, you may well be using multiple products built within a platform. It might have a branded name from one supplier on there, but you may well be using different products without knowing it. That's quite a common approach. Chris, apologies if I'm stealing your thunder again.
No,
but it's quite a common approach that the supplier will have those relationships, like what Chris is saying, to enhance the standard functionality of their core product. So it's more often not built from the working with clients to say, okay, well, your product's missing this or it's missing that. And then if that platform has a big enough ecosystem, you can tap into those different products within the ecosystem, build the relationships up, and then offer a more unified platform for your end clients without having to go in and out of different tabs, without having multiple contracts, multiple account managers, as I mentioned before. So you may well be using a platform with multiple products without knowing it. So just thought it'd be worth pointing that out, Chris.
Yeah, actually, so that's a really great point, Neil. Thank you. And then I think also just maybe some of the, and maybe it's arguable whether these are platforms or not, but the kind of native capabilities of a platform. So you might be developing for, you know, desktop web browser based applications that, you know, sitting on, say, Salesforce or Microsoft or wherever it might be. But then the ability to also develop within that technology environment web portals for your clients and candidates, and also mobile app development as well. Again, in the same technology stack. So, you know, your technology resources are not necessarily having to learn a whole raft of different skills and languages. It's all contained within that one platform, and much easier to develop for multiple clients, meaning browsers, apps, all that kind of good stuff. The availability of sophisticated tools with ongoing innovation, second to last point. I think this, for us as a partner, is huge, and I think our clients see this as well. When we look at the R&D budgets that companies like Amazon and Microsoft and Salesforce invest in R&D, it is massive. Salesforce invested $4.5 billion in 2022 in R&D, and we as a partner, as one of their customers on the platform, benefit so much from that investment, because they're always uplifting the core platform, whether it's in areas of core reporting or AI, machine learning. We can accelerate our own progress with what we're offering in TargetRecruit, just by virtue of these new technologies coming as part of the platform that we can then take advantage of and leverage. And of course, other customers as well on that platform, if they want to do their own, custom development. So for us, that's a massive, massive win in terms of partnering, and having our product on a platform. And then support of distributed teams, kind of mentioned a little bit about this earlier on in my first slide. Being cloud-based, the fact that we can access the platform from anywhere, and I think we can all probably relate to that in recent years with the pandemic. When before I joined TargetRecruit, I was a director for Robert Half in the US as part of their IT team. And when Robert Half made a huge investment in going to the cloud many, many years before the pandemic, and going to platform technologies. When the pandemic came along, obviously, literally overnight, right, we all moved from an in-office environment to working at home. That transition was very quick and easy for Robert Half at the time. And so much so that one of the very cool things that company was able to do was start then offering technology solutions to their clients that maybe weren't in that position and was struggling with that transition. And in the space of the first few months of the pandemic, Robert Half had stood up in excess of 10,000 virtual workspaces to help clients offer, their candidates and their clients, technology solutions in an environment online, a virtual workspace, and that became a whole brand new revenue stream, and that was hugely successful. Those virtual environments were provisioned from Salesforce in terms of the initial request, and then built automatically in AWS through integration between Salesforce and AWS. Very cool, very innovative. And again, without those two platforms working in situ together, that just would not have been possible.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you give up when you're working with platforms? And I'm probably a bit biased here, but I was kind of struggling a little bit with this slide. But a couple of things to maybe point out is, you are very much in the hands of the platform vendor in terms of complete roadmap flexibility. There is a dependency there, in terms of the direction that the platform vendor is taking with their technology, their R&D dollars. You can of course complement it, but in terms of full control over your roadmap, I think it's more of a partnership as opposed to you being in absolute complete control of that roadmap. And then, maybe down the line, if you want the flexibility of, say, moving to another platform or product, the potential to actually lift and move, what you've developed on that platform may not wholly be possible. That could be, could be quite some investment to re-platform, adopt to different technologies at some point in the future. But again, I think that's a pretty common challenge that a lot of technology organizations have, and not necessarily that unusual. So solutions, I'm going to hand things back to Neil, and he's going to talk a bit more about solutions.
Yeah, thanks for that, Chris. So I guess what some of you may be thinking, well, what's the right choice? Do we continue with standalone products, or do we look to invest in a platform? Or if you have a platform, continue to build on it? I guess there's not one straightforward answer. It all really depends on where your challenges are now, and again, what you think your challenges are going to be in the future. The standalone solution might be the right thing for you to do right now if you're after a quick return investment and you want a problem fixed, which is causing a real headache to your business. However, if you want a solution which is going to grow with you, address immediate as well as those future needs, and also support different business units. So it's not just, if you again think outside of buying or investing in a standalone product in isolation, you have to think about how that's going to work across the wider business. Then we would recommend a platform and products built on platform. There's three main things that you have to consider, really. So it's the people, it's the processes, and the technology. If you're just looking at a product in isolation, the impact on the people using it and the adoption of the technology and the processes that it's going to fix can be relatively narrow. But if you then think about a platform and how that could impact the whole company, those three factors all have to be taken into account that bit more, not to mention the buy-in from the business to get something off the ground. Essentially, it's a lot easier to buy a standalone product, get it implemented, but actually unpicking that further down the line, as and when your business gets bigger and your processes get more complex and your people's needs become more demanding, you've just got to be aware that you're going to have to unpick that and then look to fix it. So there's not really an answer. We'd be more than happy, anybody on the call today, if you want to have a conversation around what we think the right choice for you would be. As Chris has mentioned, it may be biased to platform, because we know the true value that a platform can give using TargetRecruit built on Salesforce. But Chris and I have got experience from both sides of platform and standalone product, and there are the merits. We just think there's more merit with a platform. And then I guess a bit more of a pointy topic is, if you are looking at the platform ATS, there's certain things to take into consideration. First off is the speed side. Can you realize your goals and fix your problems with the ATS in question? We all want to fix problems yesterday. A lot of conversations will say, when do you want your software in? We want it in yesterday because we've got so many problems. So people want problems fixed quickly, but are the timescales realistic with what your business needs? Then there's the resilience. So will the platform be able to do what you need now, but also further down the line? You have to think about where you want to be in 1, 3, 5 years time, and not just the here and now. You then got to think, is that platform future-proof? Do the products that form part of that platform have forward-thinking roadmaps? And also, which a lot of people don't necessarily take into account, is, are the suppliers that you're working with, are they aligned to what you want to aspire to and what goals you want to achieve? Because it's really important that there's a particular platform that there's a cultural fit with the supplier, or what we like to say is a partnership, because it really is a partnership. We don't have a kind of customer supplier relationship. It's a partnership because, you know, we want to make our clients successful. So are they aligned to what you want to achieve, or are they just pushing features down your neck? And then finally, is the platform truly unified? If you're buying products and not a platform from one supplier, I worked at a previous organization where we had loads of different products in the portfolio, and the assumption by a lot of customers was, well, if we're buying it from you, they must all be joined up. Do not make that assumption. A lot of products from organizations, if they've got a lot of products in their suite, will not talk to one another. They'll probably be acquired businesses which are then trying to knit those products together, and more often than not, they don't always work that great. But if you're looking to buy or invest in a platform, particularly if the platform has an established and well-documented marketplace or app exchange where the different partners and different suppliers and products all work within the same environment, and there's proof of that, you're probably in the right place. And I guess to wrap up with TargetRecruit, if any of you were working with us in the future, you'll be working with a product built on platform on Salesforce, and would strongly recommend any company considering their options around CRM or ATS to think about investing in that platform. With us, you don't just get an industry leading CRM solution. You can tap into the true benefits of what Salesforce has to offer, namely the customization, the flexibility around the config, access to standard, very well-informed reports, very flexible integration options, and also automation to take away manual processes. So that was what Chris and I wanted to run through with you today. We're now happy to take any questions that may have come in, and so feel free to pop those in the chat and we can run through them if we have time.
Great. Thank you. That was really, really interesting, and I'll wait to see if we get some questions through in chat. While we're waiting for that, Neil and Chris, I have a question for you. In terms of the difference within APSCo membership, we have companies that range from the very smallest in the market to the very largest in the market. How do their requirements differ?
So yeah, it's a good question. The requirements might not differ. They're just, when the bigger the organization, the more complex that they are. So if I go back to those 3 points that I mentioned yesterday, the people, the processes, and the technology, if you're a relatively small organization, you've probably got a good handle on your tech stack. You probably know your people pretty well, and your processes, you can by and large control those quite effectively. If you then compare that to another organization where you may have, say, different types of recruitment that you run, say temp and perm, you might operate in different regions, say the US and the UK. Those two factors are so much more complex when you're considering a product or platform. So for example, the people and the culture in the US compared to the UK is different. The processes for running a temp business, say in the US compared to the UK, are different, particularly around compliance springs to mind, and the technology as well. So, are you investing in a solution which is just designed for the US, or are you investing in a solution which is designed for, say, the UK and the US? So it just from those two simple examples, the considerations to be made are that bit more. I also alluded to it before, is that if you are looking to roll something out, such as a platform, the investment in time and the buy-in from your own business for a bigger organization is that bit more, because it's going to have more of an impact on the people, the processes, the technology, and also the cost. So they're just some things to mull over. And it tends to be the organizations, sometimes the small companies as well, when they're looking at their business plan, they see where they want to get to, and they have the insight to think, right, we need technology to help us get to that end position. Whereas the smaller companies who perhaps don't understand the true value of a platform will look the here and now, put a product in, and then they have to unpick it in years to come, when inevitably they have to have something more than standalone disparate solutions.
Yeah.
I don't know, Chris, if there was anything you wanted to add to that.
No, I think you summed it up pretty well, Neil. I think, you know, that topic around scalability is really important, right? It's, you know, what's your business roadmap look like over the next, you know, 3 years, and where you want to be? And is what if you're evaluating an ATS right now, is that going to fit you in 3 years' time? Or like you said, Neil, you're going to have to unpick it and make another investment because maybe that was a little bit that just you've grown out of that solution.
For a last question from me at this point, so if you have any questions, please get them through now. But last one from me is, and I'm thinking of some of the smaller businesses that are within the APSCo membership. It can be really challenging when you are looking to implement new systems and evaluate new systems as a smaller business, because you simply don't have that technology know-how within the business to actually do that before making the decision. What would be your advice to smaller recruitment companies that are looking at, really want to do this properly and evaluate properly and are nervous about doing it?
Yeah, it's a good question. There are a lot of people who are nervous to do it because quite often it's an individual or a team of people in a small company who are tasked with really a very responsible thing to do by choosing, you know, in our case, a CRM, which is going to have a huge impact on the organization. And usually the people who are tasked with that, unless they, you know, work in procurement or they've worked in or for in our case, a CRM provider, they don't necessarily know how to go about it. You don't necessarily know how to go about buying a piece of software. So the two things that I would always recommend is speak with people within your network who are in a similar situation to you. So if you run a temp recruitment agency, speak with people that you know who run temp recruitment agencies. The reason I say that is run say a perm recruitment agency, their needs and their wants can be very different to run temp. So try and speak with people who have been through it before and understand what their successes were, their challenges, and really what they would have done differently. And then don't be afraid. Second of all, then don't be afraid to get advice from the supplier. If you speak with the suppliers in the market, if you speak to somebody and just be very transparent and say, look, we think we know what we want, but we want to get your advice on the best way to do it. You should get some very good guidance as to what solution is best for you. But two, you're also going to get a feel of which supplier you think is going to best work with you in the future. Because at the end of the day, you know, like myself at TargetRecruit and the guys here, we deal with we have multiple conversations throughout the day with companies who are looking to implement a CRM. We understand where they're coming from, what they want to achieve. And, you know, we don't work with everybody. There's a lot of times where we put our hands up and say, look, I don't know, I don't think we're the right provider for you based on what you want to achieve. But where there is a good fit, if you can find and have an honest conversation with a supplier and understand how or things that you should be considering by putting a system in, they can quite often, if they're good at the job and, you know, they're above board, they'll give you some good advice. So in short, I would speak to your network and also try and have some honest conversations with suppliers. And don't be afraid to say, look, I don't do this every day. Can you give us some guidance as to what I should be thinking about? And also, most importantly, one massive thing, which I've just thought about, is if you've been, we see it so many times where people come to us and say, look, we've got this problem, we want to fix it, we want to go ahead with you, but that project gets kicked down the garden path time and time again because they haven't got the buy-in from the business. If you've got the buy-in from the business and you need to fix something, that is absolutely fantastic, but it's more often than not the biggest hurdle in getting something done. So if you can get the buy-in from your business before you actually embark on a journey to put a new piece of software in, it'll make life a lot easier for you. I mean, there's loads of different things you can consider. Again, happy to have an impartial chat with anybody who is considering putting a piece of software in that can hopefully give some direction.
Great.
Maybe one thing to add to that is also, like any software implementation, but you know, don't underestimate the business resources needed to make that successful, right? Do not imagine that, hey, just you know, either hand this off to IT, they'll implement it, or work with a service provider and they'll implement it for you. For you to guarantee its success, you've got to have business resources, maybe some dedicated business resources, depending on the scale of the implementation, you know, for that project. If not, you're really increasing the risk of it being successful.
Great, thank you. I think that probably is bringing us, we're almost there at the close. I would like to say a big thank you to Neil and to Chris for all of that great information this afternoon. Neil's contact details are there should you wish to get in touch afterwards. If you've got further questions, please contact them directly, but thank you, gentlemen. Before we do finish, I'm going to invite Niamh to share our feedback requests. It's just a few short questions there. Really would be really helpful if as many people as possible could complete the feedback poll. I think there are 5 simple questions, and it would be great to get your feedback. So I'll give you a minute just to do the feedback. Okay, and otherwise, I think as you're just finalising that, all that remains is for me to say thank you. Look forward to seeing you again at another APSCo Insight webinar.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.